is happening, fellow fantasy GMs? I am JJ Wang. He is the bearded one, DJ Dub. And with our powers combined, we are the Fantasy Couriers.
In the lulls of the NFL playoffs, fantasy's kind of quiet. Some people are running with fantasy that do the DFS is pretty much more going on now, but we're in like fantasy dead zone, which I don't know.
You've got to be a dedicated fantasy guy at this point if to be still talking fantasy. I mean, like I said, I still say probably 90% of people are redrafts only probably. So they really don't care about fantasy anymore. I mean, so it's just up to the remaining 10% to keep it alive until
listening to us
next year, man.
Yeah, I was thinking about it this week, and I said, the good news is in the off season, people can backtrack and listen to our episodes because they're not as time sensitive. Whereas if we're talking about something in October, that dude could pull his ACL the day after we talk about him. Now we're just sort of floating on for a little while. We can talk about guys
Yeah, everything from this point on is just all just perception of what we think they're going to do. So it's not like you got to listen to it that week. I mean, listen to this episode like 3 weeks away, and it's not really going to change.
Yeah, this episode's pretty much good until mid to late March when people get signed, and then when the draft comes, and that's when we'll hit a little bit. But it's just guys we like, guys we don't like. I put up my fantasy playoff rankings. Man, my brain's fried today. Fantasy playoff rankings for this week. And one guy, the picture I pulled was a picture of me from last summer, and he throws it up on our league, goes, "Look at that, DJ Dub there, looking like he's going for a hike on the Appalachian Trail." And I was like, "Dude, you don't realize I was at a camp literally right off the Appalachian Trail." He's like genius. But yeah, so I got rankings up there. I'm going to start working on the dynasty rankings in a little bit here and have them up because dynasty rankings will look a little different. Maybe we'll talk about it on the show one week because I would presume, I don't know how you probably agree with me, the dynasty rankings, wide receivers might get a little more of a boost as an overall ranking because of longevity if you're thinking like startup dynasty. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, wide receivers will be that guy, but as far as it's still that running back, it's crazy. The running back is what changes the most. Yeah. Like literally the RB1 dynasty running back right now is pretty much Bijan Robinson. And he hasn't even been drafted yet. I mean, there's people saying this guy is the RB1 already for next year, and he hasn't even been drafted. So that's the crazy thing about Dynasty. I mean, people don't even know who Bijan Robinson is if you play redrafts. So we don't even care about that guy. Well, if you play Dynasty, he's who you care about most right now. So that's the difference.
What would it take, or how close would you be to considering, say, in a redraft league, moving Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase? What's the highest you would take those guys?
So if we're just talking one quarterback, right?
Yeah, we'll just go one quarterback. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, after I would probably go 3 RBs deep and then a wide receiver because I feel like the wide receiver one is just as good as the RB4 in the way I rank things. So it'd be like McCaffrey, Eckler, Bijan Robinson, or Breece Hall.
There's going to be a third one. I don't know who it is. I haven't looked at that.
Yeah. So I'd probably go 3 running backs, possibly 4, and then it'd be like that number 4 or 5 pick is when I'd consider a wide receiver. Just because there's so many, and the RBs are
those top two, man,
dry up so quick.
Yeah. Except this year, if you look this year was that anomaly year, and I think it's going to help people that don't draft wide receivers early. I think next year everybody's going to be prone to get the wide receiver early because running backs as a whole, we're fairly down. I heard an interesting stat on the footballers this week that Austin Eckler was the RB1, and he had averaged less than 20 points a game, which is the lowest RB1 in a good while. Like last year, 3 people were over that.
But how valuable is that? How valuable is Austin Eckler to your football team?
Hey, he is. But the thing is, RBs as a whole. I mean, when you can get an RB
yeah.
late, like you got Josh Jacobs by dumb luck in fourth round because you held your knees and pushed the button, held your nose and pushed the button. I don't know why I held knees. Then all of a sudden you're like, boom, RB2, RB3, whatever you end up being.
Yeah, they're not getting the ball as much, if that makes sense. I mean, the receivers are getting the ball way more than what they ever have in the past. So of course the numbers gotta come down for the RBs, but having a top 3 RB is just literally the most valuable thing you can have, because after you just struggle for RBs all year long.
But it's January. Where would you think come August, or where would you think come September? Where does Jerick McKinnon fall next year? Let's say the Chiefs don't pick up any more running backs, because he won championships. Will he be ranked too high, too low, just right?
I think he's going to be ranked too high because everybody's going to be expecting, this pretty much again, because nothing's changed and he's still with Pat Mahomes. So I think he's probably going to be overdrafted. I mean, it's hard for me to say where, because I mean it's Jerick McKinnon. So
Yeah. All right, well,
it's crazy to say.
people
It's
jump on
crazy
the
to
hot
say
news.
that you would draft him really that high at all, like 5th round, 6th round, because you just don't know what you're going to get. Even that might be too high. Plus, what if
Feels
they end
too
up
high.
drafting a running back?
Well, I say in a vacuum, they don't draft a running back. Where would he fall? So, because Pacheco looked decent, but it seemed like Mahomes trusted McKinnon more. What are they doing with CEH next year? It's a
Yeah,
hot
but
mess.
what if Pacheco earns a little more of that trust next year going forward? Because I mean, he was a big part of the offense.
Yeah.
Um, so I think what if it becomes more of a split and McKinnon isn't scoring all? We had like what crazy number of receiving touchdowns?
Oh, yeah. It was
That's
ridiculous.
that's not going to happen again. So if he's not getting those crazy amount of touchdowns, and we all know his fantasy touchdowns are like the least. I don't know the name. I don't know the word I'm looking for. Yeah,
Consistent.
yeah.
Consistency.
The least thing you can count on with touchdowns. So I'd be scared to like I'd take a flyer on him if it was late, but I'm not drafting him. I'm not be like, hey, I got to make sure I get McKinnon, so I'm going to reach for him.
Oh, I haven't told you this. One more thing. Oh, by the way, if you're listening to us, we're the Fantasy Couriers. Hey, you listened to
Oh
us
yeah.
this long. If you're still listening to us in January, thank you. We appreciate it. I always hate to look at the numbers because redraft. We have a lot of redraft fans. We got a handful of dynasty fans we're talking to that'll hit us up. Well, we're gonna keep you entertained. We're gonna more or less. We're selfish. We're keeping ourselves entertained. That way we can get the football in. But hit us up anywhere if you have any questions, things you want us to talk about. We're open. If there's teams or players you want us to just say, hey, what do you think about these guys? Send it to us. We'd love to hear it. I'll pop some stuff on social media for you later. I popped last week's drop on TikTok and I got a bunch of hits. Just to see what
Nice.
happened. I just cut and pasted on there. I still don't understand TikTok, but that must mean we're old guy podcasters.
I've never been on TikTok in my life, so you probably understand it a little more than I do.
I was like, why
I
does
have
this
seen
keep
it. Don't
showing
get me
up on
wrong.
TikTok?
I have seen a TikTok video, but I've never personally been on TikTok myself, so I don't know.
Yeah, so I just forgot what we were talking about.
We always talk about Jerick McKinnon.
Jerry McKinnon, yeah, I lost track. As we're going in here, this week's real theme of the NFL itself, which we will see how it affects later on, was coaches, coaches, coaches. Frank Reich going to Carolina. Does that help your boy Sam Darnold, or does that mean they're drafting a quarterback, or is Carolina doomed because the Colts were terrible this year?
I mean, Frank Wright didn't help Carson Wentz. So, I mean, can Frank Wright help Sam Darnold? But maybe I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're probably going to draft one. But honestly, with where the Colts are at, they're not going to get the top 3. I mean, I think they're not the Colts, the Chief or the Panthers.
Panthers.
They're picking like 9th, I believe. So I don't think their top 3 quarterbacks are going to already be gone. I don't. There's not another quarterback at this point that I think you would take at 9. So they probably have to wait later in the second round. But I probably think they'd probably take a quarterback at some point. But Frank Reich doesn't get me excited in any way.
And there've been a lot of a lot of OCs changing teams. Chargers got a new OC. My brain is we are.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what I was gonna say before I said who we are. We are recording this before the championship games. That's why you won't hear from us. We're having things with our kids, family weekends. So we are all just we're just glad we've been playing phone tag all day. JJ Wang lost his snake, so his
Got a
snake
snake
is
running. Yeah, there's a
I want to see
snake
it
running
dangle
around.
behind you. That would be awesome.
Yeah, he's been out. He's been out for about 36 hours now. So we'll see. Keep you updated. See if we find him.
And then in memoriam, JJ Wang's computer.
Yeah, I think it's finally done. It's asking me to put in some command prompt. I don't know any command prompts, so we'll yeah, we'll just bury it in the backyard.
Let the chicken scratch it up. So that's why
Okay.
JJ Wang is in a big white room. He's not getting interrogated or anything. But we'll go into a little interrogation here with our topic of the day. Here we go. The fantasy season is over. Another is approaching. As we look at the past, we look into the future. What's coming next year? What will be? Let's look with the Fantasy Couriers into the Fantasy Crystal Ball. So what we did is we took a couple of guys that we're just thinking maybe they'll do a little better next year. Some of them are a stretch, but I think we all pretty much assume, CMC, Eckler, they're going to be pretty good next year. Standard. I mean, I threw a quarterback in. I don't know if you saw yet, but quarterbacks, you never know. They all score points. Everybody's going to draft the top 32 quarterbacks somewhere on some teams. It's not like a guy. Some of these guys people might not draft. They might go, oh, interesting. They might have forgot about him. One of them, I think, starting to become the new hotness in his role. But we're going to name a few guys that we think could take a little bit of a next step next year. And you might want to keep your eye on, especially dynasty people. Keep your eye on some of these guys as we go in.
Yeah, so make sure you're letting me know who we're talking about because, like I said,
I'll introduce them all since you're
okay. There you go.
You're being very creative today, and you're here for the people, man. You aren't going to let a computer slow you down.
No.
So we're going to start with Mr. Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney, amazing, surprising talent for me, to be honest. He came out of Florida. Everybody's like, well, why in the world did he land there? He seemed like he was drafted too early, too late for some people. Everybody thought for sure he was going to go to Jacksonville, but they drafted ETN instead. So he landed with the Giants, and he was always hurt. But when he played, the kid was good. And then he went to Kansas City, and he's been sort of, ho-hum in Kansas City. He's had a couple games. He had a 4-reception, 71-yard game. He had he had 2 whopping touchdowns this year, a whole whopping, make sure I got the right stats, a whole whopping 171 yards this year. But to me, he had 7 targets, 5 receptions, 36 yards in the Jacksonville game. So Mahomes is looking at him, but I feel that with the talent that this kid has, next year he could easily, Juju's nothing to write home about. MVS, nothing to write home about. He's got to find someone. So why not Kadarius?
Travis Kelce.
Oh yeah, Travis Kelce is the number one. But what we're learning really is every team needs 2. Look what took the Eagles over the top. It was having that second receiver, that second person. You need that 2 receivers in the passing league to go sort of jump that. The Dolphins went from being meh to a decent squad this year with 2 great receivers. If Tua doesn't hit his head, we could be playing. But every team that, if you look at the teams that are super, they have that. They have
multiple weapons. Yeah, it can't help. It can't hurt when you have guys take off the coverage. But I don't know what to think about Kadarius Toney. I'm not a huge fan. I think he's more that boomer bust player, that Tyler Lockett type individual, but not.
Everybody's Tyler Lockett for us. He's our guy.
But when I say Tyler, I can say boomer bust. That's pretty much Tyler Lockett. When I say Tyler Lockett, I mean like a boomer bust receiver. But I think it's like a light version. Like I think there's more bust than boom in Kadarius Toney's game. But when he booms, it's going to look great, and it's going to be enough to make you keep coming back for more. But I just think there's going to be more busts at the end of the day than booms, and he's going to make you frustrated more than not.
You think he's the Chiefs' number 1 next year?
No, I don't think. I don't think he's the number 1 receiver. I don't think he's that type of. I don't think he's that type of that guy. I could be wrong. But from what I've seen so far, he had those 2 good games in the Giants in the very beginning. And then since then, it's been pretty even with, I know he's coming out of nowhere off the street and he's adapting to the team. He could possibly get better. Like you said, that's why he's on this list and not any others. But I see a world, but I'm not a huge fan.
I like the gadget work, so that's where I sort of feel him. The gadget could be he's
a gadget guy,
good gadget guy, but getting some of those sweeps will be.
So he's not a number 1 receiver. He's a gadget guy because you can't be both.
So he's a gadget. I don't For that team, the number one receiver could very easily be a gadget. Like Debo Samuel, he needs all those extra gadget things to get to where he is getting his numbers per se. Whereas Brandon Ayuk on that team only catches the ball. On this team, Travis Kelce only catches the ball, and he could be the not as Debo is a stellar athlete. Kadarius Toney's a great athlete. So he could be a fantasy. I mean, I would look at him as I wouldn't have problems with him being a fantasy 3 on my team, knowing that there was because the 3 is the guy you can swap out if you need to. But
I mean, he's definitely an asset to your fantasy team. I mean, he's definitely worth roster and probably starting. He's definitely probably starting, but it's going to be scary every week. You don't know what you're going to get.
Speaking of scary, the next guy on our list started his NFL career by getting shot. And first 4 weeks, Brian Robinson, Washington Commanders. He came in with expectations. We were like, Gibson's done. He's toast. Brian Robinson's going to pound it. And then he came in. I mean, he didn't have a terrible year. Once he got in week 5, he ended with 797 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he pounded it. I mean, he only played in 12 games, and honestly, getting shot in the season has to affect you. I don't want to say throughout the whole season, but I mean, probably mentally, physically. I mean, it's probably pretty rough. And with the Redskins, I don't know how this is true, but I think they ran the ball more than like anybody in the league, or like top 3. So the rushing stats are there. I don't think that's going to change with maybe Hal being the projected starter already. I don't want to say already, but with the opportunity, they're going to have to run the ball a lot. And he's definitely a workhorse, and I see him scoring more than 2 touchdowns. So if he can get like 1,000 yards, 8 or 9 touchdowns, I mean, that's solid work right there. And he's a big dude, so he's definitely got the goal line carries.
He's got the pedigree too. So we both love Brian Robinson. He's gonna fall one of those guys. I think he'll get drafted higher than we would probably think, and then we'll miss out on him because people are like, we like him and we want to draft him, but people might be like, oh yeah, where's your try to sneak him?
That's what happens when you get desperate for running backs. Yep. I mean, these running backs go high just because he's going to get the ball. That's the thing. He was getting 20 to 25 carries a game. I mean, he was putting in the work at the end of the season. It's like he's just got to get those touchdowns.
So you popped out a name that I'm going to move up on the list. I wasn't there when I did the original doc, and that's Sam Howell.
Yeah, I was going to mention him too. Yeah.
Okay, the fantasy crystal ball. If we're looking into the crystal ball for Sam Howell, we only have a small sample: 11 of 19, $169, touchdown, and an interception. He also had the rushing yards for was crazy. What is he? 5 for 35 and a touch. The stats are all wonky here. Yeah, 5 for 35 and a touch.
Yeah, and I also wanted to put in Desmond Ridder here too, because I kind of see them as the same.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Pretty much the same. I didn't want to put down quarterbacks, but if we're going to talk about quarterbacks, I'd like to say Desmond Ridder along with Sam Howell, because I think they're both going to go into this season, this training camp, as the number 1 guy. So they're going to get their chance. And like you said, they're a starting quarterback. So I mean, that helps. I mean, that's what you want.
And Ridder ended up 708, 2 touchdowns. Shockingly, he only ran the first game, really. He had 64 yards, 38 of them in the first game. So, but yeah, and 0 touchdowns. That's the interesting thing. He didn't have a passing touchdown until the last week.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure they were pretty conservative about it. I mean, they didn't want to open it up too much. But like I said, that last game, he looked solid. Just hopefully he can improve with more work.
I mean, fantasy, if we're looking at the crystal ball, of these 2 guys, you have to say Ritter's got the best chance to be a starter next year, correct?
I think they both have the same amount of chance of being a starter.
Really?
Yeah, I think Sam. Like I said, going into the season, I think they're both going to be like given the chance to like be the guy. But like this could change if either one of them bring in like a veteran quarterback.
Yeah, that's more where I'm thinking.
I don't see either one of them drafting a quarterback that high, but if they bring in somebody like maybe like a Derek Carr like pops in somewhere, then you're going to worry. But I think they both stand equally amount of chance to start next year.
Yeah, I think Ridder, they're going to give him a year because the draft pick's not good enough, and I think I can see Washington bringing in one of those, the Jimmy Garoppolos, the Derek Carr, and they're going to plop them in there and try to plod along like they always do. And Sam Howell again will play in Week 10 next year, and that's.
But with the Commanders, the way how like finish the season. I mean, like that's who they want. They want him to have the opportunity. I mean, I feel like he at least earned an opportunity.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd like to see him get a chance. I mean, I don't even know. Are they out of? Don't they still owe Wentz money? Right? They still have Wentz.
I'm not sure how that works out. I'm not sure. They're probably going to owe him something. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm assuming he's still in the whole mess there. So let's stay in the AFC East. We're gonna look at Wandell Robinson. When he got drafted, everybody said, "Why in the world are they drafting another Kadarius Toney?" And he ended up, for the most part, my computer is slowly updating my stats. He ended up, for the most part, looking pretty solid. I mean, he was inactive for a handful of weeks. He played the first week, nothing, but then he started playing at week 6 through week 10, and he accumulated 227 yards and a touchdown. Looked like a lot of quick little twitch in him there, and then, boom, he was done. So, in his absence, Isaiah Hodgkins stepped up. Slayton flashed every blue moon. You had a little, who was the other receiver they had?
Ricky James.
Ricky James, thank you. Ricky James had a couple good games. I mean, I think for me on that team, Hodgkins to me seems to have secured himself a job next year. The other guys will be there, but Wandell could slip in because he looked like he was getting the confidence of Daniel Jones. His last game was 9 receptions for 100 yards, and then boom, he's done. So, and Daniel Jones will be their quarterback, so nothing's gonna change.
Yeah, so I don't see Wandale as another Kadarius Toney. I think they're different receivers, if that makes sense. I think they're both kind of gadgety guys, but I don't think they're the same style. I think if you wanted a comparison to Wandale Robinson, you would go Rondale Moore. I feel like they're exactly the same player. But the problem is 5'8", 180-pound wide receivers just typically don't work out. Well, yeah, will they have their games? Sure. But especially with the Giants, they're not a high-volume passing attack. So is he going to get all those opportunities? Like the 5'8" thing, I mean, it scares me because you just don't see it happen. We all felt this way about Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore was great, and he's even in a kind of a high volume passing it. They like to throw the rock, and he'd have like a game here and a game there. But you're not happy with Rondale Moore at this point, and I feel like Wandale's pretty much the exact same character.
And I think the Giants' passing is the volume's going to go up if they don't re-sign Saquon, because that's going to be intriguing. I've seen different places Saquon could roll out to, and we'll talk about that later on. We'll see what best spots for players could be, but
like I'm not sure. I'm not sure you want Daniel Jones to be in a high volume passing attack.
No, he runs so much. That's good. Who would have thought Daniel Jones would be one of our best running quarterbacks this year?
Coming out of college, I mean, that's what he was. That was part of his game. That's why it was, that's why everybody likes him in fantasy. Well, some people like him in fantasy.
Yeah, he saved my tail this year in that one league that I won, so I was very, very happy.
Yep.
The next guy is your guy out of Cleveland. We have 6'2", 204 DPJ, as people call him, or anybody who has no clue who we're talking about. Donovan Peoples-Jones ended the year with 61 receptions, 839, and 3 touchdowns. What's he gonna do? What's your crystal ball saying?
So what I'm seeing with him is if you look at the progression of his last 3 years, he went from like 200 to like 500, and then it was like 800. So the progression is there. And that's with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. Now, if we do expect Deshaun Watson to be a good quarterback, like kind of how he was at the end of the season, like that last game, I think that last game he put up a lot of points, a lot of yards. And I think that's more or less what we're going to expect as far as passing goes. And you still got Amari Cooper. That's absolutely, he's going to be there. He's still going to get points. But I think there is enough room in like today's NFL where you need 2 weapons, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I think you're looking at over 1,000 yards, and if he can get those touchdowns up to 7, 6, 7 touchdowns, 1,000 yards, I mean, that's a kind of progression that you want. And if Deshaun Watson is going to be that good, Peoples-Jones is a big time down the field threat. I mean, he can catch bombs, and Deshaun Watson can get the ball down the field. So I mean, I think there's a chance that he goes over 1,000 yards and reaches, 7, 8 touchdowns, possibly more.
Yeah, he was sneaky. This year he had like a couple of stretches where I was like, wait, I need to pick him up. He's looking pretty solid. Then somebody just grabbed him or something. And Yeah, he looked like he was taking that step. The only thing that would make me wonder is to be curious what their plans are for David Bell, who they drafted last year. Like, will David Bell slot in as the 3, or could he sneak up in there and challenge DPJ for those spots? Yeah,
But I think they're also two different kind of receivers. Like DPJ's got like that downfield threat.
yeah.
David Bell's more like the underneath like type of guy. So I think there's room for all three of them if Deshaun Watson is going to air it out, like like 300 yards a game. I think there's plenty of volume to go around. But Peoples Jones is right now has proven a little more than David Bell, so I think he's going to get the full opportunity going into next season.
Yeah. So we're gonna go with a guy he's going to be the off-season hotness of tight end premium leagues. That's my boy Chigo Okonkwo. Him and Jelani Woods are probably going to be the talk of the off-season. He came in. I want to go back and find the episode. I remember talking about him last summer, like hearing about his athletic I was reading about his athletic profile and how he'd be a great set. Then I watched him have a couple games early on. He had Malik liked him on that one pass when he started, but he ended with 450 yards and 3 touchdowns on 32 catches. And one of the stats that came out was, I believe it was yards per reception was 14.6, which is pretty awesome. But I mean, is that a skewed stat because he had those 2 58-yard catches or so? Those two long bombs. So to see where it balances back, I don't think we'll be able to draft him because people are going to jump on him early. But I could see him. He could be a dude who.
Go ahead and say it, dude. He could be a top 10 tight end.
A name we're talking about. Yeah, like top 10 tight end easily. Like I think this. I mean, if you have 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, you're a top 10 tight end. But he could take that just a little bit next step. I mean, dare I say top 7 if Tannehill connects with him? Because the problem for him was more. I'm trying to think when Tannehill went out. So he had a couple there with Tannehill. Josh was looking towards him a little bit. Malik couldn't throw the ball to save his life, so I think I was wrong on him, but. And Tannehill looks like he's going to be there, and Tannehill likes tight ends, so maybe he's going to step in, and he could be a sneaky. Either your guys are really into him, or they're like, I've never heard of that dude. I can't say his name. I'm going to go another route and forget about it. But
yeah, I think he's definitely worth keeping an eye on. Like I said, I wasn't big on him, but I think he's proven enough as far as in the tight end landscape that you big athletic dude, and that's what we want. But how many of these big athletic freaks keep coming in the NFL and they just constantly keep failing? People like OJ Howard. There's plenty of Kyle Pitts, right?
Kyle Pitts, right? Someone tried to trade me Kyle Pitts this week.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like he looks good. Don't get me. I mean, he looks good if the offense can, get him the ball. Like you said, if he can get you 50 yards and a touchdown here and there, I mean, that's really all you're really looking for out of these tight ends at this point. And with his athletic ability, I mean, this upside is even higher then. I mean, I'm kind of talking myself into him more and more as I'm talking about it.
After my tight end to you this year, yeah,
I still don't like tight ends. Don't get me wrong.
I think this year I grabbed him, dropped him, at least 3 or 4 times in like every single league. So your guy, I think it's going to be interesting to see the drafting of this next guy. Your guy is James Cook out of Buffalo. So I've seen the drafting, how he compared to Singletary. He ran for 507 and 2 touchdowns, had 21 receptions for 180 yards and a touchdown. So what are you thinking, JJ Wang?
I'm thinking if he can keep that over 5 yard a carry type, because that's what he's averaging, over 5 yards a carry, and I can see in that offense, that's what he's going to do. I'm thinking probably 800 rushing yards. I mean, that's 700-800 rushing. I don't think he's going to be that kind of back where he's getting 1,100-1,200 rushing yards. I don't think that offense is made for that first. But I'm hoping what really explodes is the receiving game. If he could get those catches up to 45, 50, which is definitely maybe even more, because he's definitely got the ability. In that offense, they're looking for options outside of Stephon Diggs. We thought it was going to be Gabriel Davis.
Is he going to be there?
Yeah, maybe. It didn't really turn out what we thought. So, I mean, Singletary's probably still going to be there, but I think if you're looking for receiving options, this is what you got a guy that you drafted, and I think you're going to start utilizing him. And I think it took a while for him to also get into the season after he fumbled on his very first play of his career. It took him a while to get moving. It felt like they pulled back on him a little bit. But by the end of the season, I mean, he was getting just as much volume as Singletary, it felt like.
They were pretty much splitting, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, they were in the hunt for Christian McCaffrey at one point. So they're looking for that. They realized that with their style of offense, more so like the 49ers seemed like a weird fit, but a genius fit for McCaffrey.
I think McCaffrey is perfect for the 49ers.
Because if you'd think like McCaffrey, would be one of those like running gun teams. Like Kansas City would have been beautiful because they're just have that like he'd be Jerick McKinnon, but. That's what Cook was drafted as. Everybody was like, oh yeah, he was drafted for that role. He's got Singletary there. They're going to be a Thunder Lightning, probably split it. Cook probably wide receiver 3 with high wide receiver 2. Running back 3 with running back 2 ceiling probably.
Yeah. It's possible. Like I said, there's I'm not expecting a lot in the rushing. I mean, if he can get a couple more touchdowns as far as rushing goes, maybe up to 4 or 5, that would be great. But it's all about that receiving work, man. This is what he come into the league for.
Last one is a total. On the notes I wrote, totally speculative because he had 70 yards this year. He's 6 foot, 215 pounds, running back for the Oakland Raiders. Oakland Raiders. How about Las Vegas Raiders? You say Redskins, I say Oakland. We're looking at Zamir White, and this one really comes down to this could be a moot point in a few weeks. Does Josh Jacobs re-sign with the Raiders?
Probably not. I just can't imagine paying. But then, like, if you're going to pay Saquon Barkley, I mean, you got to pay Josh Jacobs. But it's tough, man. I'd be the stingiest owner ever.
Yeah, and when you got, running backs, basically, I've always attested that they should have like a different kind of contract than any other player because
they should
wear out. They should, based upon draft stock. But what do you think of Zamir White? We have a small sample size. We saw him in college. We liked him coming out. I have a first-round draft pick in a rookie draft because some dude wanted Zamir White last year, and he this year's first for Zamir.
I think he's a solid running back. It's just whether or not he can get to work. If Josh Jacobs comes back, I mean, he's just not going to get to work. That's the issue. Josh Jacobs not there. He's going to get first crack. I mean, they'll probably still draft a running back, but as long as he's, popping off in camp, making plays, I mean, he's going to have first crack, and he'll be the running back for the Raiders. I mean, I like him too. I'm on the train as well.
Oh, sweet! I like it. And before you give us some wisdom, I want to tell you something cool. I joined this league last year. If you meet people, and just for our listeners, if you meet people, my boy Jared, who was on here last year, who I met through the Fantasy Couriers Facebook page, and we chatted. I joined their league. It might be taken over as my favorite league I've ever been in. Within 2 weeks after the draft has happened, or after the draft, man, I cannot think tonight. After the season ended, there have been like 4 or 5 big trades. I have the 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and I just packaged the 1.3 for the 1.5 and 1.6 because I don't need 2 quarterbacks. I took the guy who needed the quarterback, and I got myself back into Gibbs and receiver, or 2 running backs, or if I want to, take the kid from Kentucky. So I'll be able to run away with Bijan.
I don't know. What did you have?
I had the everything 1.1, 1.2, 1.3.
What do you got now?
1.1, 1.2.
That's what you have now?
And the 1.5 and the 1.6.
So you got the 1, 2, 5, and 6.
Yes. So I moved back. I packaged because I need more. I don't need as many quarterbacks, and people won't jump as quick. And if I can get I'll just probably stack running backs. That's what that team needs because it's really good. But if you're in Dynasty, keep the Dynasty ball rolling. No better way to have a Dynasty league fold than to not. So I just wanted to prop up regulators, the regulators for being awesome. Yeah. So give us some wisdom.
Regulators mount up, right?
That's the whole thing. Let's see. I was trying to I'll brain fart on the exact total name of our league. I think it's the Regulators Dynasty, but I was like, when I heard it, I was like, oh, good old Wanji, Regulators Dino League. And they're all in a different time zone than me. That's the hilarious part.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, my wisdom isn't fantasy related. It's for all you snake owners out there. If you got a snake, make sure you have latches on your lids and just don't be setting stuff on top of it because evidently they are way stronger than you could probably imagine. So make sure you lock your lid down, then you'll be safe. So as always, trust yourself and trust the process.
And don't get a snake.
Don't get a snake.